The Perks of Being a Wallflower, December 25th, 1991, continued. And my sister started talking about how the way a woman looks is not the most important thing. I agreed, but then my brother started saying how my sister was just a bitchy dyke. Then my mom told my brother to not use such language in front of me, which was strange considering I'm probably the only one in the family with a friend who's gay. Maybe not, but one who actually talks about it. I'm not sure. Regardless, my dad asked how my brother and Kelly met. My brother and Kelly met at a restaurant called Ye Old College Inn or something like that at Penn State. They supposedly have this famous dessert called grilled stickies. Anyway, Kelly was with her sorority sisters and they started to leave, and she dropped her book right in front of my brother and she kept walking. My brother said that although Kelly denies this, he's sure that she dropped the book on purpose. The leaves were in full bloom when he caught up with her in front of the video arcade. That's how he described it anyway. They spent the rest of the afternoon playing old video games like Donkey Kong and feeling nostalgic, which is as a general statement I found sad and sweet. I asked my brother if Kelly drank cocoa. Are you high? And again, my mom asked my brother not to use such language in front of me, which was strange again because I think I'm the only person in my family who's ever been high. Maybe also my brother, I'm not sure. Definitely not my sister. Then again, maybe my whole family has been high and we just don't tell each other these things. My sister spent the next 10 minutes denouncing the Greek system of sororities and fraternities. She kept telling stories of hazing and how kids have died before. And then she told this one story about how she heard there was a sorority that made the new girls stand in their underwear while they circled their fat and red magic markers. My brother had had enough of my sister at that point. Bullshit. I still can't believe that my brother swore in the car and my dad or mom didn't say anything. I guess because he's in college now. It's all right. My sister didn't care about the word. She just kept going. It's not bullshit. I heard it. Watch your mouth, young lady, my dad said from the front seat. Oh, yeah. Where did you hear it? My brother asked. I heard it on National Public Radio, my sister said. Oh, Jesus. My brother has a very full laugh. Well, I did. My mom and dad looked like they were watching a tennis match through the windshield because they just kept shaking their heads. They didn't say anything. They didn't look back. I should point out, though, that my dad slowly started turning the Christmas music on the radio to a deafening volume. You are so full of shit. How would you know anything anyway? You haven't been to college. Kelly didn't go through anything like that. Oh, yeah? Like she'd tell you? Yeah, she would. We don't keep secrets. Oh, you're such a sensitive new age guy. I wanted them to stop fighting because I was starting to get upset, so I asked another question. Do you talk about books and issues? Thank you for asking, Charlie. Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. Kelly's favorite book just happens to be Walden by Henry David Thoreau, and Kelly just happened to say that the transcendental movement is a close parallel to this day and age. Ooh, big words. My sister rolls her eyes better than anyone. Oh, I'm sorry. Was anyone talking to you? I happened to be telling my younger brother about my girlfriend. Kelly says that she hopes a good Democratic candidate will challenge George Bush. Kelly says that her hope is that the ERA might finally pass if that happens. That's right, the ERA that you always squawk about. Even cheerleaders think about those things, and they can actually have fun in the meantime. My sister folded her arms in front of her and started whistling. My brother was too much on a roll to stop, though. I noticed that my dad's neck was getting very red. But there's another difference between you and her. You see, Callie believes in women's rights so much that she would never let a guy hit her. I guess I can't say that about you. I swear to God, we almost died. My dad hit those brakes so hard that my brother almost flew over the seat. When the smell from the tires started to fade, my dad took a deep breath and turned around. First, he turned to my brother. He didn't say a word, he just stared. My brother looked at my dad like a deer caught by my cousins. After a long 2 seconds, my brother turned to my sister. I think he felt bad about it because of how the words came out. I'm sorry, okay? I mean it. Come on, stop crying. My sister was crying so hard it was scary. Then my dad turned to my sister. Again, he didn't say a word. He just snapped his fingers to distract her from crying. She looked at him. She was confused at first because he wasn't giving her a warm look. But then she looked down and shrugged and turned to my brother. I'm sorry I said what I said about Kelly. She sounds nice. Then my dad turned to my mom and my mom turned to us. Your father and I don't want any more fighting, especially in the family's house. Understood? My mom and dad make a real team sometimes. It's amazing to watch. My brother and sister both nodded and looked down. Then my dad turned to me. Charlie? Yes, sir. It is important to say sir at these moments. And if they ever call you by your first, middle, last name, you better watch out. I'm telling you. Charlie, I would like you to drive the rest of the way to my mother's house. Everyone in the car knew that this was probably the worst idea my dad ever had in his whole life. But no one argued. He got out of the car in the middle of the road. He got in the back seat between my brother and sister. I climbed in the front seat, stalled the car twice, and put on my seatbelt. I drove the rest of the way. I haven't sweat that much since I played sports, and it was cold out. My dad's family is kind of like my mom's family. My brother once said it was like the same cousins with different names. The big difference is my grandma. I love my grandma. Everyone loves my grandma. She was waiting for us in the driveway as she always did. She always knew when someone was coming. Is Charlie driving now? He turned 16 yesterday. Oh, my grandma is very old and she doesn't remember things a lot, but she bakes the most delicious cookies. When I was very little, we had my mom's mom who always had candy and my dad's mom who always had cookies. My mom told me that when I was little, I called them candy grandma and cookies grandma. I also called pizza crust pizza bones. I don't know why I'm telling you this. It's like my very first memory, which I guess is the first time I was aware that I was alive. My mom and my Aunt Helen took me to the zoo. I think I was 3. I don't remember that part. Anyway, we were watching those two cows, a mother cow and these two cows, and a mother cow and its baby calf, and they didn't have a lot of room to walk around. Anyway, the baby calf was standing right underneath its mother, just kind of walking around, and the mother cow took a dump on the baby calf's head. I thought it was the funniest thing I had ever seen in the whole world, and I laughed about it for 3 hours. At first, my mom and Aunt Helen kind of laughed too because they were happy that I was laughing. Supposedly, I didn't talk hardly at all when I was a little kid, and whenever I seemed normal, they were happy. But into the third hour, they were trying to make me stop laughing, but it only made me laugh harder. I don't think it was really 3 hours, but it seemed like a long time. I still think about it every now and then. It seems like a rather auspicious beginning. After hugs and handshakes, we went into my grandma's house, and the whole dad side of the family was there. Great Uncle Phil with his fake teeth, and my Aunt Rebecca, who is my dad's sister. Mom told us that Aunt Rebecca just got divorced again, so we shouldn't mention anything. All I could think about was the cookies, but my grandma didn't make them this year because of her bad hip. We all sat down and watched TV instead, and my cousins and my brother talked about football. And my great Uncle Phil drank, and we ate dinner, and I had to sit at the little kids' table because there are more cousins on my dad's side of the family. Little kids talk about the strangest things. They really do. After dinner is when we watched It's a Wonderful Life, and I started feeling more and more sad. As I was walking up the stairs to my dad's old room and I was looking at the old photographs, I started thinking that there was a time when these weren't memories, that someone actually took that photograph, and that the people in the photograph had just eaten lunch or something. My grandma's first husband died in Korea. My dad and my Aunt Rebecca were very young, and my grandma moved with her 2 kids to live with her brother, my great Uncle Phil. Finally, after a few years, my grandma was feeling very sad because she had these 2 little kids and she was tired from waitressing all the time. So one day she was working at this diner where she worked, and this truck driver asked her out on a date. My grandma was very, very pretty in that old photograph kind of way. They dated for a while and finally they got married. He turned out to be a terrible person. He hit my dad all the time, and he hit my Aunt Rebecca all the time, and he really hit my grandma all the time. And my grandma really couldn't do anything about it, I guess, because it went on for 7 years. It ended finally when my great Uncle Phil saw bruises on my Aunt Rebecca and finally got the truth out of my grandma. Then he got a few of his friends together from the factory, and they found my grandma's second husband in a bar, and they beat him up really bad. My great Uncle Phil loves to tell the story when my grandma isn't around. The story keeps changing, but the main point is still the same. The guy died 4 days later in the hospital. I still don't know how my great uncle Phil missed going to jail for doing what he did. I asked my dad once, and he said that the people that lived around his neighborhood understood that some things had nothing to do with the police. He said that if someone touched your sister or your mother, they'd pay the price, and everyone looked the other way. It's just too bad that it went on for 7 years because my Aunt Rebecca went through the same kind of husbands. My Aunt Rebecca had it different though, because neighborhoods change. My great uncle Phil was too old and my dad left his hometown. She had to get restraining orders instead. I think about what my three cousins, who are Aunt Rebecca's children, will turn out like. One girl and two boys. I get sad too because I think that the one girl will probably end up like my Aunt Rebecca, and the one boy will probably end up like his dad. The other boy might end up like my dad because he can really play sports, and he had a different dad than his brother or sister. My dad talks to him a lot and teaches him how to throw and hit a baseball. I used to get jealous about this when I was a little kid, but I don't anymore. Because my brother said that my cousin is the only one in his family who has a chance. He needs my dad. I guess I understand that now. My dad's old room is very much the way he left it, except more faded. There is a globe on a desk that has been spun a lot, and there are old posters of baseball players and old press clippings of my dad winning the big game when he was a sophomore. I don't know why, but I really understood why my dad had to leave this house. When he knew my grandma would never find another man because she was through trusting and would never look for anything else because she didn't know how. And when he saw his sisters start bringing home younger versions of their stepfather to date, he just couldn't stay. I lay down in his old bed and I looked through the window at this tree that was probably a lot shorter when my dad looked at it. And I could feel what he felt on the night when he realized that if he didn't leave, it would never be his life. It would be theirs. At least that's how he put it. Maybe that's why my dad's side of the family watches the same movie every year. It makes sense enough. I should probably mention that my dad never cries at the ending. I don't know if my grandma or Aunt Rebecca will ever really forgive my dad for leaving them. Only my great uncle Phil understood that part. It's always strange to see how my dad changes around his mom and sister. He feels bad all the time, and his sister and he always take a walk alone together. One time I looked out the window and I saw my dad giving her money. I wonder what my Aunt Rebecca says in the car on the way home. I wonder what her children think. I wonder if they talk about us. I wonder if they look at my family and wonder who has a chance to make it. I bet they do. Love always, Charlie.